So what if this life is not about getting it right, not about achieving something, not about getting anywhere, but it is an open exploration, and it's about being fully engaged in the exploration of this life. Because once we're actually in an exploration, all comparison and competition and all ideas of how it should be, we could even say all looking for models of the way that I should be, have to really fall away. And ultimately, freedom comes from entering into the frequency of what true sovereignty is. What is it to be sovereign? What is it to be the sovereign being? And of course, in order to truly enter the frequency of sovereign, we have to discover the source, the power, the essence for ourselves. We can't be sovereign if we're buying into secondhand ideas, if we're buying into someone else's interpretation of this human life, right? So that's why whatever does call us, whatever does inspire us, is enlivening and igniting what we already know. But in separation and in the deeply held belief in limitation and there's something wrong with me, we can believe that I'm not worthy to know, I don't have the capacity to know, I am less than, right? So we can be playing in that field of projecting seeming power outside of us and believing that someone else knows the way. So this exploration of life, this adventure of life is to test what inspires us in our lived experience, not to try to adhere to someone else's idea, interpretations of life, and also not to, well, let's say we have to make everything current, and the only way that we make everything current is by the testing and the exploration in the lived experience. If what we're longing for is truly freedom and wholeness, then in a way we have to long to know what true sovereignty is. What is it to be a sovereign being? Because this feels to me where the power truly is. And it's not a sovereignty that has anything to do with independence or self-reliance as the protective mechanisms that we have learned, because that actually keeps us from our true power, because it's rooted in a sense of unworthiness and lack. Like truth, the frequency of truth, when it is alive in anything that inspires us, that seems to guide us, that seems to show us the way, to inspire us. The truth is a frequency that is inviting us to find for ourselves what reality is, find for ourselves the true nature, the one essence, to find for ourselves where power actually is. And so that coming into a sense of sovereignty actually brings us into unity, which in a way the mind might think that coming to sovereignty is like could be a hierarchical or a holding of a position, but it's actually releasing hierarchy, competition, comparison, and position into the flow of unity. It's actually coming to an honesty about our true belonging. And always with belonging comes true safety. So as we connect to Source through the stillness, through the silence, through the field of being, the field of silent presence, we discover the frequency field of true sovereignty. Now, coming into that frequency of sovereignty also asks us to take responsibility. If we're holding the frequency of limitation, lack, unworthiness, then to actually take our seat in the field of sovereign being and to truly receive the grace of being one with the glory, one with what is divine and pure and untainted, can feel somewhat challenging. It can challenge our beliefs of unworthiness and lack and limitation. When we are holding the belief in separation and division, and we're resting in a protective mechanism, in a way we feel powerless and helpless, hopeless. We feel some degree of a sense that we're not worthy, or we're not enough, that we're lacking or deficient somehow. And so how do we really open to the truth and the unity of it all when our deeply held beliefs tell us that we're not, while all the while there is a part of us that knows that we are? And of course it's about connecting to where that knowing is. How do we come to unity? How do we come to know what we belong to? How do we come to know the one essence? How do we find our way out of the belief in separation, limitation, and lack into the remembrance of unity? In a way, the me that feels unworthy, lacking, lives with a reflection of certain challenges in the life born out of the protective mechanism and the belief in separation. So we could say, if I believe I am separate, then I'm going to be creating in consciousness a life that's going to be reflecting that belief in separation and limitation, so that I have the possibility of receiving a reflection that will give me the opportunity to ask the big questions that might change my life, that might change the frequency and might shift the limiting beliefs. I'm going to be living with a reflection of life that is going to call me to stop, come to presence, to contemplate and inquire about the greater truths of this life. And of course, it's as we come to this kind of contemplation and inquiry that we start to open to be more conscious, more aware, more enlivened in the exploration and adventure of life, and getting to the deeper truth about who I actually am, what is the true nature, to discover what unity is, to discover what true belonging is. So it's as if all of life is inviting us into the deepest knowing. In a way, life itself is the intelligence. life itself is the flow of grace. It is the flow of intelligence that is pointing us, guiding us. And so if we turn away from the gifts and grace of life, if we come into a denial of the parts of life that we don't like, or that seem to be confirming our deeply held belief in lack and limitation, instead of meeting life fully, truly, openly, then we could be missing the opportunity to really explore the grace that life as the one intelligence, as the one power is offering us. It's worth being constantly very curious with what calls us, what inspires us, what enlivens our heart. And to continue to allow that exploration to not be looking to achieve something, not be looking to cohere with anyone else's ideas, but to use what has gone before us, what inspires us, to carry us deeper. And in that, let's say to make it current, is to be living very fully engaged in life, because how we make it current is by living it now, in the now, right? By living it in the now, exploring it in the now, exploring it in the face of what seems to be on the screen of life in this current time. And the curious thing is that this is actually what leads us to recognize the eternal, timeless nature. It's what leads us to recognize where true power is, what true power is, and that there is only one power. We could say in a way that if we are truly, truly longing and drawn to wholeness and freedom, then we are being drawn to what divinity is, what purity is, what God and glory is, underneath the words, underneath any kind of holding contexts or concepts. We're being drawn to discover what the frequency of wholeness really is. What is wholeness? And what is this freedom that we are seeking for? It feels that we cannot be following any kind of external manifest, but that we almost have to be creating our own great, glorious, lived experience as the intelligence, according to our unique wiring, according to coming into a greater connection with our intuitive knowing, and of course, coming into the radiant connection with true power and presence, an unquestionable knowing of what the divine truly is. And so when we come to the presence of being, we enter the field in a way that is neutral. We enter the field that belongs to us all and that we belong to unconditionally. We enter the stillness and the silence, where we can discover for ourselves the connection to Source, a connection to what wholeness is, what God and glory actually is, what the mother is, beyond concept and idea and anyone else's interpretation. We discover a connection which is deeply and profoundly nourishing. True nourishment is a result of being connected into true belonging. It's in the discovery of what we belong to that there's a true nourishment that comes in. It's how we connect to the truth of love. It's by allowing the sense of me and my protection to let go into an all-inclusive embrace of this moment of true power, of God and glory. The thing is that the one that feels unworthy doesn't truly want to be sovereign, even if that one might think they want to be. That deeply held belief in separation kind of wants someone else to save me, wants someone else to be the good parent, right? Wants someone else to be holding the responsibility, wants someone else to tell me how to do it. And so when the invitation to really come into this power comes, it can feel on one hand really engaging, and it can feel on another hand like a kind of abandonment. Because we want to be in connection, we want to join, and of course there's an absolute truth in that, and we are fully intended to be in connection and to join. That actually is the flow of unity, is the release of the protective self-reliance and coming into a connection to source that is sovereign, and then joining from the frequency of wholeness. This is where the power for true change resides. This is where the power for true shifting in the consciousness of the collective resides. Is as each being is truly willing to awaken, right? Many beings think they want to awaken, but is there actually a deep willingness to come into the sovereignty? We could even say through the aloneness that it takes, not by going into isolation, but by actually saying yes to the exploration in a way that is willing to see through outdated ideas, willing to actually be the sage, willing actually to be the living intelligence, willing to actually be the living reality, and let life be a laboratory, an exploration, not looking to achieve a goal, but to be fully engaged and embracing the play of life as the means for revelation, freedom, and the discovery of true wholeness. That we discover that this adventure isn't actually personal, right? It's not my awakening. It's not my achievement. Of course it can't be. It's very appealing, and there are lots of things in the play of the world that will try to sell us what we feel that will make me successful in the goals that I want to achieve for me. It's not as compelling to join in what is, let's say, a life that is in service to the whole. Again, it's an idea that can feel very enticing, but the reality of it can be co-opted by the mind's desires for worldly success to be seen, to be validated, to achieve. So there's this dance, which is part of the exploration. It's part of the adventure. We're not expected to have it all right, have it all in place. We are being invited into the exploration. We're being invited into the adventure, and we're being very much invited to share it, to participate together, to be in the exploration and the laboratory of our life as a community, really like a village, right? I've been seeing Sangha like a village, that we sit around the fire together and we share, that everyone is not pointed towards one thing, that we're all sitting around the fire of truth, right? And we're in the exploration, and yet it is around the fire that the village kind of joins and shares, communes, right? In a way, that's what satsang is in truth. It's a gathering in truth. It's a gathering where the call of the heart is pulling us to come into this exploration, this adventure together. And it's facilitated by truth. It's not facilitated by someone. And yet we all have unique dharmas, and coming to live our unique dharma and to come into be living as the one that each of us can only be uniquely requires for us to be in this exploration wholeheartedly, so that we get our roots into fertile soil, that we're being truly deeply nourished, and we're creating like a sovereign manifest, right? We're not taking on a worldly manifest for how life should be. We're not picking up secondhand ideas, that we start to live from a kind of self-born wisdom. We start living from our intuitive knowing. And it's in the sharing and the lived experience of it that we explore and we find out what it is to live reality. If, of course, that's what we're interested in. If we're interested to find out what is it to realize the most profound possibility of what this human life is. Like, who am I really here to be? What is this life really all about? And that in the exploration of the life, that of course we will come across in our companionships guidance and way showing and inspiration, and that is all an incredibly potent part of it. And yet to really digest everything in life, really all of life, is that way shower, right? It's about really digesting all of life, really taking it in and exploring it. So that when we are truly being nourished from source, when our roots are in fertile ground, that we start to be more attuned to the intelligence that brings online greater capacity, purifies in a way the field of our consciousness, refines our nervous system, recalibrates and reorganizes discombobulation, invites us through the play of life to meet ourselves more deeply in situations that might feel like they challenge us. But as they challenge us, if we can be with the feeling field and we learn to be more adept, right, at being with the feeling field, transmutation and alchemy truly starts to happen. The fire that we are sitting around is an alchemical fire. The fire of truth is an alchemical fire. And that fire is love. It is divine love. It is pure love. It is the love that sees, the love that burns everything but itself. It's like it turns everything into itself, right? It reveals the essence nature, and it reveals the unity of all, right? So in a way, when we ask the question, like, how do I get to unity? How do I come to know that? It's like right through the center of life, right through, like really being so fully present for the lived experience and meeting the places as energy that feel like there's something wrong, that feel discordant. We start to clear away the obscurations. We start to love the unmet parts of ourselves. We start to illuminate what feels like darkness and reveal the true essence of everything. It's like our lived experience starts to cohere and unify, and here we discover what unity is, the one essence of all. And of course, we can't learn this through any kind of secondhand knowledge. We can only directly experience it. And as we experience it, it's like our roots go even deeper into the fertile ground of the unified field. And as our roots go deeper into the fertile ground, we start to be nourished in a way that we can blossom and flower in our true dharmic flow. And we could say that the heart sankalpa that we can sense, whether it can be many layers of the heart sankalpa. It can be a sankalpa that we feel is like a life sankalpa, like what does the heart know? What does the heart sense about this life, about what I'm here for, about the way that I'm uniquely wired, what inspires me, right? And of course, we can in any moment connect into a frequency of the heart sankalpa that is to do with a particular container or event or a moment or a meeting, right? We can connect into different layers of that. But ultimately, that heart sankalpa is connected to the dharmic flow. It's what the heart already knows. And the dharmic flow is the lived expression of, in a way, what we're opening to as our true essential nature. It's like we go inward to discover that. And the dharmic flow is then the expression of that, flowering and coming outwards. Right? So it's all in the stillness, the silence, and the presence. In a way, this is our portal, our resting place. And at the same time, this presence isn't about avoiding life. It's about giving us the capacity to meet life, to be with life, present as presence in life, so that we can meet life and meet what arises in the play of life in a way that allows this transmutation to happen. We start to discover in our own unique ways how our life and our lived experience in this exploration is part of a much bigger experiment, right? In a way, our life is an exploration or an experiment. It's part of a much bigger experiment and exploration. And depending on our view of that exploration, like the exploration of human consciousness, of humanity, when we can zoom out and we can see the big picture from a perspective that's not so entangled in the fear and the circumstance, it allows us to actually be in service to this, or we could say our life to be in service to this whole. And it's not a sense of service which is showing up in ways that cohere with mainstream ideas of what service is. To truly be in service is to be fully present in your life, right? It's not about being a do-gooder, is what I mean, right? Although, as we discover our essential goodness, we discover the goodness of all. We discover the innocence of all, right? But service isn't about being seen or validated as being good or being in service. It's about being present in the life and following the inspiration and actually truly flowering as the one that each of us is here to be, fully rooted in the coherent heart, nourished in fertile ground of source, as an embodiment and an alive frequency of what true power is, like a living emanation of power. And that power, of course, is love. The true power is love. So being a living emanation of love, being a living frequency that is potent, and then being in the lived experience, it starts to become more and more of a potent adventure. Perhaps you are noticing that, dear companions, right? Perhaps you are noticing that. That in a way, the more that we take responsibility, the more that we are engaged, the more that we're not giving power to secondhand ideas or ideals, the more engaged we are, the more curious we are, the more fascinated we become. It's like we realize the power and potency that we actually have to be one with Creator, and to then know what we are as the formless, the unmanifest, the great glorious one, and we carry that knowing into an embodied manifest expression for the rest of the human life that we each have left, right? Because then we are using this exploration and embodiment in a human, as a human, not to transcend and get away, but to actually have a radiant impact on the collective consciousness, because that radiant impact isn't about making a change by putting out an idea of what everybody else needs to do or how everyone else needs to do it, right? It seems here in my exploration that we have to take everything inside and kind of create our own living manifest, our own living exploration of life that is feeding the whole and is, in a way, enlivening the same curiosity in our companions and families and constellations around us, but that every being will have their own doorways, their own exploration, right? So I feel like there's much more I could say because I'm very excited about this topic. But sitting around the fire with the village companions, it would be great and glorious to hear what is enlivened in your heart and what is happening in your exploration right now. Because again, it's in hearing from each other and the sharing that we invite a greater enlivening, right? That we call each other into coherence and depth. We call each other into this exploration of what is it to live this together, and that we're not creating like a manifest that anyone needs to adhere to, but we're connecting more to the deepest intelligence that is the essential manifest for life, right? The living Veda, the living intelligence, the living reality. It's already there. The wisdom is already there. We don't need to create something else. We're just tapping in and we're sharing what we're tapping into and what we're discovering.